over and labeled some things on your urinary system notes here. So I'm gonna, this should all be already labeled for you in your notes. I am going to just go down here below my diagram picture. And today we're going to talk about the flow of both waste and that of blood. Okay, because the whole point of the urinary system is to filter out waste from your blood. Okay, so I'm going to start off here. So we're going to be going over the flow of waste. And I'm going to make that in yellow. And then we're going to be talking about the flow of blood. All right, so the urinary system's whole job is to take your blood and filter through it and get rid of any toxic waste, usually in the form of nitrous wastes, and turn it into urine. And so I'm going to start us off by talking about the blood first. So from your bloodstream, blood is going to go from your bloodstream through your aorta. The aorta is the main artery that leaves the heart and pumps blood out to your body. And it takes it to the renal artery. So the renal artery is a specific artery that's entering the kidneys. So this term renal, when you see the word renal, it means having to do with the kidneys. Hold on, I'm just going to make this a little easier. So the renal is having to do with the kidneys. So from the renal artery, blood is going to then enter your kidneys. And it enters, you have two kidneys. So it goes into either one. And if we look at the picture of your, that you have above, it shows the artery splitting into your left and right kidneys. Okay, so you have two renal arteries that branch off of the aorta. So the kidneys are the main organ that we talk about when we're talking about the urinary system. And the kidneys are going to then filter and clean your blood. Okay, so I've been using red to describe the blood coming into the kidneys. I'm gonna turn it over to blue. And we'll talk more tomorrow about why we use red and blue when we're talking about blood. So from your kidneys, the blood is going to leave through the renal vein. And then from the renal vein, it's going to dump into the vena cava or vena cava, which is the main vein that brings blood back to your heart. So this blue blood over here, we consider this clean blood. It's been through the it's been filtered through the kidneys. The blood that's coming from the aorta, I'm going to go back to my red here. This blood, I'm going to call it dirty blood, even though it's not necessarily, it's for lack of a better word, I'm just going to use the term dirty so you understand it's not filtered. It hasn't been cleaned yet. So this is the order that your blood travels. So it goes from your aorta to the renal artery to the kidneys, and then it leaves through the renal vein to the vena cava and back to the heart. So that is the flow of blood. Now, the other thing we're talking about here is the flow of waste. So that waste is going to come in your dirty blood. So it's going to be coming into the kidneys on the red side here. So it is going to go through the aorta, just like your blood did. It's also going to enter the kidneys through the renal artery. And it's going to go to those kidneys. So this is now kind of the flow of waste. I'm going to use yellow to show the waste here. So now the waste is not going to go back into the renal vein. That would be this. Remember, this is the clean blood here leaving the kidneys. So what happens here is the blood goes from the kidneys now into, does anyone remember what the tubes are called leading from the kidneys, carrying the waste? If you know it, you should put it in the chat. What are they called? There's two of them. Not pulmonary veins. Yeah, Caitlin, the ureters. So the waste is going to travel down those ureters. There's two of them. Into what? What do the ureters lead to? Yes, Sarah, into the bladder. And then from your bladder, where does your waste go next? How does it leave your body? There's one more tube involved here. Yep, it goes through the urethra. So the path that your waste takes, okay? So we're not talking about the blood now, we're talking about your waste. It goes from the aorta through the renal artery into the kidneys, and then it leaves through the ureters into the bladder and out the urethra as urine, right? So if we wanted to number the pathway of waste, we would say aorta would be 1, renal artery 2, kidneys are 3, ureter would be 4, bladder would be 5, urethra would be 6. And hopefully a toilet would be number 7 and not somewhere else, like somewhere less pleasant. All right, so I believe in your homework assignment that was due today, you needed to describe the pathway of waste and how it gets out of your body. So this diagram that we just drew would be helpful in writing that essay. And then the other thing that we need to make sure that you understand is that in the kidneys here, we have a functional unit that's actually doing the filtering. And that functioning unit is right here. It's called a nephron. So this is our nephron. And in this picture here, what you need to know is that we have the unfiltered or dirty blood is going to come in on this red side here from the aorta. It's going to go into, let's see, I'm going to use this little laser here. So the dirty blood is going to go into the nephron, into this tight little group of capillaries here called the glomerulus. So what the glomerulus is a tight network of capillaries. And we're going to talk about capillaries tomorrow, but what they are tiny, tiny blood vessels. They're so small that just one blood cell can go through them at a time. They're really, really tiny. So the glomerulus is a tight network of capillaries here. And the blood is going to leave from there. And as it crosses over this pathway, the waste is going to go down this tubule here. And it's going to enter, you don't need to know all the names of this, but this is the tubule that's going to lead the urine out of the body here. So this little, where the glomerulus meets the tubule is that area called the Bowman's capsule. So this is where the two meet, the blood flow, the blood supply, and the tubule that's going to collect the waste. And then what's going to come out of this process will be the clean filtered blood. So this is, the nephron is the filtering machinery, I'm going to call it, of the kidney. And you have millions of these in your kidney, in each of your kidneys, the nephron. So some things that the nephron is actually keeping and making sure goes, that stays in your body are listed over here. So it's keeping water. Unless you've had too much water, then it's going to release some of that into the tubule. It's going to keep glucose, which is sugar. You don't want to lose that because you're going to need it for energy. It's going to keep amino acids to make proteins because we still need to keep making proteins. And it's going to keep some ions that are needed for your body to function. And the thing it's going to be getting rid of are these nitrogenous wastes. And then it, like, extra water could also be released at this point if you've had too much water. So a nitrogenous waste is what's left over when you break down proteins. We have like all this extra nitrogen that our bodies can't do anything with, and it can become toxic if it builds up too much. So you need to know what our body keeps and what it gets rid of. I shouldn't have done that in a, let me do this. So it keeps these things and it gets rid of these. All right, so again, one last look at a picture here of the kidney doing its thing. So you have your renal artery coming from the artery carrying waste product or blood that has wastes in it into the kidney. And up here we see the nephron doing its job of filtering that blood. And then anything that's, any waste is gonna end up going down into this, what's called the renal pelvis. And it's going to collect there and exit through these ureters as urine to the bladder. All right, so hopefully that little review helps you to understand the flow of both waste and of blood. And you should have this image all labeled already. There's one more little thing I want to make sure that you understand, and that is what happens when your bladder gets full of urine. Okay, so here's my full bladder, which may or may not look like what my bladder looks like right now. So you have down here at the bottom of your bladder, you have what's called a sphincter. And it's a muscle that is holding your bladder from releasing that urine. And you can hold it, like you can hold it for quite a long time. But when it is time to go to the bathroom, what happens is this sphincter muscle has to relax. So the sphincter muscle relaxes, and the muscles around the bladder is a big muscle, it contracts. So the bladder muscle contracts, and the sphincter muscle relaxes, which is what allows you to go to the bathroom. Otherwise, you're not going to go. And sometimes people have like, what is it called? When you go in the bathroom and you're like, you can't go because maybe there's somebody in the stall next to you and you're like nervous. You don't want them to hear you go. Like you can keep holding the sphincter, but eventually it's going to relax and your bladder is going to contract and you are going to go to the bathroom and release that urine. Okay, so that is all we wanted to cover today. And I want to share with you that you have a homework assignment that's due tomorrow. And it looks like this. And when we originally put this into Canvas today, it had highlighting on it. And when you move it over to Notability, for some reason, it doesn't keep the highlighting. So I want to make sure that you guys, first of all, everyone right now should be going and getting this because it's not in your notes. This is something separate. So for my classes, it's linked in the calendar today. It's also a homework assignment in Canvas, so you can find it in two different ways. You can go to assignments, or you can go to the calendar. Today's the 16th. And I believe Mr. Austin also linked his to the calendar. But when you open it here, you're gonna see that there's only a couple questions that are actually highlighted in purple. And I don't know why, but for some reason, when you move this over to Notability, the highlighting all disappears. So if you could right now, take a moment and upload this right now so that we can get the things that you need highlighted. So you're not working on this entire 4-page assignment. You could do that too. Yep, you can split screen Notability and this document and highlight the things that you need. But I just want to make sure you guys know, because this is a 4-page assignment. And there's some things on here that you don't need to know, that aren't going to be, you're not going to be held accountable to. So the first thing is we do want you to read this section A, this paragraph. And then we want you to answer questions 1, 2, 4, 6, 5, 6, and 7. So all of them except for number 3. So you're going to skip number 3. Then we want you to label the diagram in section B. So you're going to label 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that should be pretty easy to label. There's just 4 things there. You have a diagram like this in your notes that's labeled. It shouldn't be too tough. You don't have to do anything else on that page. And then on the second page, section C, we want you to do number 7 and 8. You do not have to label the kidney, okay? So I know there's a beautiful picture of a kidney there. You don't have to label it. If you do, then you're not listening to what's highlighted. And then section D, we want you to do 1, 4, and 7. And that's it. So there's nothing you have to do on page 3 or 4. If you are interested in learning more about, there's section F is all about diseases of the kidney. So if you are interested in learning more about the kidneys, you feel free to look at this and learn more. But these are the things that we're going to hold you accountable to know for the test, the things that are highlighted. Okay, so this is your homework for tomorrow. It's just doing these few highlighted questions that I just went through. All right, so we're going to give you the rest of the hour to work on this. If you haven't already turned in your homework assignment for yesterday, where you have 2 essays that you had to write, this could be another time that you work on that as well. And other than that, Mr. Austin, we are good. You wanted to stop recording.